The aroma of roasted turkey and cinnamon-spiced apple cider filled my home, a home I'd carefully decorated for Christmas. "Get out," Ezra barked, shattering the festive illusion. "Paying bills doesn't make you family." My hands trembled slightly as I set the last dish on the table, a cranberry sauce I'd made from scratch, just the way they used to love it. "Don't be dramatic," Ezra, Nolan mumbled, not even looking up from his phone. He finally glanced at the table, a flicker of annoyance crossing his face. "Really, Mom, this again?" He gestured dismissively at the china, the crystal glasses, the carefully folded napkins. "It's just us." I had spent the entire day preparing this meal, hoping for a warm, connected Christmas with my children. I'd even used the good silver, the one my own mother had passed down to me. "It's Christmas," I said quietly, trying to keep the tremor out of my voice. I wanted it to be special. Brenda, Nolan's wife, arrived fashionably late, air-kissing me on the cheek without making eye contact. "Darling, you shouldn't have gone to so much trouble," she said, her voice dripping with a saccharine sweetness that never reached her eyes. "Julian's mother always caters. So much easier." Julian, of course, said nothing. He simply nodded in agreement with Brenda, a smug little smile playing on his lips. "Where's the wine, Mom?" Ezra asked, already rummaging through the cabinets. He pulled out a bottle of Merlot, not even bothering to ask if it was the one I'd chosen to go with the meal. "This stuff is okay, I guess," he muttered, uncorking it and pouring himself a generous glass before offering it to anyone else. The casual disregard, the lack of any genuine warmth, was like a cold hand squeezing my heart. I had always provided for them, made sure they had everything they needed, and more. The cars they drove, the clothes they wore, even the roof over their heads, all thanks to me. Yet, here they were, treating me as if I were an inconvenience, a bothersome fly buzzing around their perfect Christmas. "The turkey looks dry," Brenda commented, poking at it with her fork. "Did you even brine it?" She turned to Julian. "Darling, remember that turkey we had at the Four Seasons last year? Now that was a turkey." Julian chuckled, and together they launched into a detailed description of their luxurious Christmas getaway, completely oblivious to my presence. I watched them, a strange numbness creeping over me. I had paid for that Four Seasons trip, a gift I thought they would appreciate. Clearly, they had no idea. Nolan chimed in with a story about his new golf clubs, a casual mention of a membership at an exclusive country club. I had paid for those clubs, for that membership. They spoke about their lives, their plans, their desires, all funded by me. Yet I remained invisible, a ghost at my own table. The laughter, the chatter, washed over me, a meaningless cacophony. I felt a strange disconnect, as if I were watching a play, a badly written one at that. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had worked tirelessly to give them the lives they wanted, and in doing so, I had erased myself from the picture entirely. "So, Mom," Ezra said, finally acknowledging my presence again. About that loan he paused, swirling the wine in his glass. "I'm going to need a little more this month. Unexpected expenses, you know." He didn't elaborate, and he didn't need to. I knew what the unexpected expenses were. Designer clothes, fancy dinners, keeping up appearances. "And Mom," Nolan added, I was thinking about upgrading my car. Something a bit more sporty. Could you maybe look into that? He gave me a boyish grin, the one that used to melt my heart. Now, it just felt manipulative. Brenda cleared her throat, a delicate, practiced sound. Actually, Elmira, darling, we were hoping you could help us with a down payment on a new house. Something a bit bigger. She smiled, a predatory gleam in her eyes. A little more suitable for a growing family. A growing family. They hadn't even mentioned wanting children before. Suddenly, the room felt suffocating. The smell of the turkey, once so inviting, now nauseated me. The festive decorations mocked me with their cheerful absurdity. To need some air, I stammered, pushing back my chair. The scraping sound against the hardwood floor seemed deafening. "Excuse me." I turned and walked towards the back door, my legs feeling strangely heavy. "Where are you going, Mom?" Ezra called after me, his voice laced with annoyance. "We haven't even eaten yet." I didn't answer. I stepped out into the crisp night air, the cold a welcome contrast to the stifling atmosphere inside. As I closed the door behind me, I heard Ezra's voice, clear and sharp, cutting through the stillness. "Honestly, she's so dramatic." And then Brenda's voice, dripping with condescension. "Just ignore her, darling. She'll come around. She always does." Standing there in the darkness, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. They thought they knew me. They thought they had me figured out. They thought I would always be there, their endless source of money and support. They were wrong. Something shifted inside me, a quiet resolve hardening in my chest. I had spent years catering to their whims, their demands, their insatiable need for more. I had silenced my own desires, my own dreams, to ensure their happiness. And for what? To be treated like this, to be dismissed, disregarded, erased. The cold air stung my cheeks, but I didn't mind. I looked up at the star-dusted sky, a small, almost imperceptible smile playing on my lips. They thought this was the end of the story. They had no idea it was just the beginning. The Christmas ham sat cold on the counter, a greasy monument to a ruined day. "Just leave, Mother," Ezra had said, his voice dripping with a disdain I never thought I'd hear from my own son. Brenda, perched beside him like a preening bird, had added, "You're just making everyone uncomfortable." The words, tossed out so casually, had sliced deeper than any knife. Now, hours later, the silence of the empty kitchen pressed in on me. The twinkling Christmas lights, once cheerful, now seemed to mock my solitude. I picked up a stray ornament that had rolled under the table, a tiny glass angel, its wing chipped. It felt symbolic somehow, a fragile representation of my own broken spirit. I clutched it tightly, the cool glass a small comfort against the burning in my eyes. How could they, after all these years, after all I'd done? A wave of exhaustion washed over me. I sank into a chair, the events of the evening replaying in my head like a cruel film reel. Brenda's mother, Celestina Parrish, holding court, bragging about Julian's latest business deal. Brenda, chiming in with exaggerated stories of their extravagant lifestyle. Ezra and Nolan, nodding along, eager to bask in the reflected glory. And me sitting silently, feeling increasingly invisible. I'd tried to join the conversation, to share a small piece of my own life, but my attempts were brushed aside like so much dust. "Oh, Mother," Brenda had sighed, rolling her eyes. "No one wants to hear about your garden club." It wasn't about the garden club, of course. It was about something much deeper, a resentment that simmered beneath the surface of their polished smiles. They saw me as a relic, a faded backdrop to their vibrant lives. I closed my eyes, trying to block out the memory of Ezra's harsh words. "You're disrupting the flow," he'd snapped. "Just go." Disrupting the flow, as if I were some unwanted ripple in their carefully curated stream of perfection. The truth was, their perfect lives were built on a foundation I had laid, brick by painstaking brick. The house they lived in, the cars they drove, Brenda's designer handbags, Julian's business deals, all of it funded by me. They'd grown so accustomed to my quiet support that they'd forgotten, or perhaps chosen to ignore, its source. They treated me not as the bedrock of their comfort, but as an irritating pebble in their shoe. I opened the drawer where I kept the household accounts, the meticulous records of every check written, every bill paid. My fingers traced the lines of ink, a physical reminder of the years of silent sacrifice, the mortgage payments on Ezra's house, the down payment on Nolan's car, the endless stream of loans to Brenda and Julian that were never repaid. I looked at the figures, a dizzying sum that represented not just money, but a lifetime of love and support, poured out without expectation of return. And what had I received in return? Disdain, contempt, banishment from their Christmas table. A strange calm settled over me. The burning anger began to recede, replaced by a quiet resolve. I thought of the luxurious hotel downtown, the one with the rooftop pool and the breathtaking view of the city. I'd seen an advertisement for their New Year's Eve package, a decadent escape from the ordinary. It had seemed frivolous then, an extravagance I couldn't justify. But now, it felt different. I pulled out my phone and started browsing the hotel website. The images of plush suites and sparkling champagne glasses flickered on the screen, a stark contrast to the cold, empty kitchen around me. A small smile touched my lips. Perhaps a little extravagance was exactly what I needed. I closed the laptop, the image of the hotel suite imprinted in my mind. It was time to make a few calls, to rearrange some things. The children wouldn't notice immediately, of course. They were too caught up in their own world, their own carefully constructed reality. But soon, they would start to feel the shift. The comfortable ground beneath their feet would begin to crumble. The seamless flow of their perfect lives would be disrupted. And I, for the first time in a long time, would be watching from a distance, sipping champagne on a rooftop, enjoying the view. The angel ornament still lay in my hand. I placed it gently back on the table, its chipped wing no longer a symbol of brokenness, but a reminder of the quiet strength that had begun to bloom within me. The Christmas ham still sat on the counter, but its presence no longer held the same weight. The sting of their rejection was fading, replaced by a different kind of feeling, a sense of anticipation, a quiet thrill at the thought of what was to come. The silence in the kitchen no longer felt oppressive, but pregnant with possibility. I picked up my phone again, my finger hovering over the hotel's number. New Year's Eve was just around the corner, and I had a reservation to make. The silence in my bedroom was a stark contrast to the forced cheer just hours ago downstairs. Just leave, Mother, Ezra had said, his voice dripping with disdain. Brenda, ever the dutiful wife, had chimed in honestly. Mother, you're embarrassing yourself. Christmas dinner. My own children. I sat on the edge of my bed, the weight of their words pressing down on me like a physical burden. I picked up the stack of bank statements, a habit I'd maintained for years, meticulously tracking every penny. Usually, it was a source of quiet pride, seeing how my careful management had allowed me to not only secure my own future, but also support my children's. Tonight, though it felt like a lead weight in my lap, I flipped through the pages, the crisp paper rustling in the quiet room. Each transaction, each deposit, each withdrawal told a story I'd somehow become blind to. There was the down payment on Ezra's house, disguised as a loan he'd never intended to repay. "Don't worry, Mom," he'd said, flashing that charming smile. "I'll pay you back every cent." The smile hadn't reached his eyes. Even then, I saw the monthly payments for Nolan's car, a sporty little number far beyond his own earning capacity. "It's just until I get that promotion, Mom," he'd assured me. The promotion that never materialized. And then there was Brenda. Endless shopping sprees, lavish vacations, a lifestyle meticulously curated to portray an affluence that was entirely fabricated. "Julian's doing so well, Mother," she'd purr, dangling a designer handbag just out of reach. "We're practically swimming in it." A wave of nausea washed over me as I totaled the amounts, the numbers blurring into a sickening sum. Years of my life, of careful saving, of denying myself small luxuries, all poured into this bottomless pit of their entitlement. I had enabled this. I had fostered this monstrous sense of entitlement that had culminated in tonight's humiliation. "You're lucky we even let you stay here, Mother," Ezra had sneered before storming off. "Stay here. This house, the house I had paid for, the house that was in my name, the house they treated like their own personal playground." I closed my eyes, the sting of tears threatening to break through the numbness. I thought of all the Christmases past, the joy I'd felt in providing for my children, in watching their faces light up with excitement. When had it shifted? When had their gratitude morphed into expectation, their love into a transactional arrangement? I'd always believed that family came first, that blood was thicker than water. But tonight, their words had cut deeper than any knife. "You're being dramatic, Mother," Brenda had sighed, rolling her eyes. "It's just a bit of fun. Fun at my expense. At the expense of my dignity, my self-respect." I opened my eyes, the tears now dried, replaced by cold, hard resolve. The bank statements felt different now, not like a burden, but like a weapon I could wield with surgical precision. I thought of the upcoming New Year's Eve gala at the Grand Majestic Hotel, the one Brenda had been gushing about for weeks. "Julian's taking me, Mother," she'd bragged. "It's going to be so exclusive, so glamorous." She'd even shown me the invitation, a gilded card embossed with elegant script. The thought of her preening in her designer gown, sipping champagne, surrounded by people she desperately wanted to impress, filled me with a strange sense of satisfaction. A plan began to form, a quiet, subtle plan that wouldn't involve shouting matches or dramatic confrontations. A plan that would simply allow them to experience the consequences of their own actions. I picked up my phone and opened the banking app. It was a simple matter, really. A few taps, a few clicks, and the flow of funds would cease. No more automatic payments, no more generous loans, no more enabling their extravagant lifestyles. I stared at the screen, my finger hovering over the confirm button. A flicker of doubt crossed my mind. Was I being too harsh? Was this the right thing to do? Then I remembered Ezra's dismissive tone, Brenda's condescending smirk, Nolan's indifferent shrug. My finger pressed down, firm and unwavering. The transaction was complete. I closed the app and placed the phone on my nightstand. The silence in the room felt different now, not oppressive, but empowering. The first step had been taken, and I had a feeling this Christmas the best gift wouldn't be found under the tree, but in the quiet satisfaction of a lesson learned. I glanced at the brochure for the Grand Majestic Hotel, the glossy image of its opulent lobby shimmering under the bedside lamp. Perhaps a little New Year's Eve getaway was in order. Just for me. The silence in my bedroom was deafening, broken only by the occasional sniffle I couldn't quite suppress. Just leave, Mother, Ezra had said, his voice dripping with disdain. Brenda had chimed in, her tone condescending. Honestly, Mother, you're embarrassing yourself. Christmas Day night. I sat on the edge of my bed, clutching a crumpled tissue, staring at the blinking cursor on my phone. I'd typed and deleted a dozen messages to my children. Are you okay? I'm hurt. Even, I love you. Each attempt felt pathetic, a plea for scraps of affection they'd clearly shown they weren't willing to give. I tossed the phone onto the bedside table. It landed with a dull thud that mirrored the hollowness in my chest. What was the point? They wouldn't understand. Or worse, they would understand and simply not care. The thought stung more than any harsh word. Years of quiet support, of ensuring they had everything they needed. And this was how it ended. A Christmas dinner curdling into bitterness. My own children turning me away from their table. I stood up, walking over to the window. The streetlights below cast a warm glow on the freshly fallen snow, a stark contrast to the chill that had settled in my heart. I thought about all the Christmases past, the joy in their faces as they unwrapped gifts, the laughter echoing through the house. Had it all been a lie? Had they only been pretending, all these years, to appreciate what I'd done for them? My hand drifted to the small antique jewelry box on my dresser. Inside lay a delicate silver locket, a gift from my own mother. It was a tangible reminder of a different kind of love, a love that was freely given, without expectation or resentment. I opened the locket, tracing the inscription inside. Always in my heart. A fresh wave of tears welled up, but this time they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of anger, a quiet, simmering anger that began to warm me from the inside out. I closed the locket with a snap, a newfound resolve hardening my features. I wouldn't beg. I wouldn't plead. I wouldn't waste another tear on children who didn't value me. There were other ways to make them understand. Subtle ways. Ways that wouldn't involve shouting matches or tearful apologies. Ways that would make them realize the true cost of their ingratitude. I picked up my phone again, this time scrolling through my banking app. The numbers on the screen, usually a source of anxiety, now seemed to shimmer with possibility. Ezra's monthly allowance, Nolan's car payment, Brenda's business loan, a thinly veiled excuse to fund her extravagant lifestyle, one I suspected Julian was blissfully unaware of. I tapped each entry, a small, almost imperceptible smile playing on my lips. It's time for a change, I murmured to myself, the words barely audible above the gentle hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen below. A change that wouldn't involve tearful phone calls or desperate attempts at reconciliation. A change that would speak louder than any words I could say. A change that would make them understand, in the most visceral way possible, what it meant to lose the support they had taken for granted. And as for me, I deserved a little treat. Something luxurious. Something just for myself. I'd always wanted to spend Christmas at the Grand Hotel. Their holiday packages looked divine. Perhaps, just perhaps, this Christmas wasn't ruined after all. Perhaps it was just beginning. The morning after Christmas felt colder than the snow dusting my windowsill. Just leave, Ezra had snarled, his face twisted in a way I'd never seen before. You're ruining everything. Brenda, ever the picture of composure, had simply added, honestly, Mother, you're being dramatic. Their words echoed in the quiet house, sharper than any winter wind. I sat at the kitchen table, the remnants of the untouched Christmas breakfast I'd prepared still sitting under wraps. A wave of nausea washed over me as I looked at the unopened gifts. I'd carefully chosen for each of them a cashmere scarf for Brenda, a new set of golf clubs for Ezra, a leather-bound journal for Nolan. Such a waste, I murmured, pushing the plate of congealed bacon away. The silence of the house pressed in, amplifying the emptiness I felt. I wandered into my study, the one room in the house that felt truly mine. The shelves were lined with books, each a comforting friend in times of trouble. But even they couldn't soothe the ache in my chest. I sat at my desk, the mahogany cooled beneath my fingertips. My gaze fell on the stack of bank statements I'd meticulously organized just yesterday. They detailed the automatic payments I'd set up for Ezra, Nolan, and Brenda, the gifts that allowed them to maintain their lifestyles, the generosity they took for granted. Ezra's car payment, Nolan's mortgage, Brenda's exorbitant shopping bills, all meticulously documented. They have no idea, I whispered, a strange sense of calm settling over me. I opened my laptop and logged into my online banking portal. The cursor blinked on the screen, a small, pulsating invitation. My hand hovered over the mouse, trembling slightly. This is it, I thought. This was the moment I took back control. With a deep breath, I clicked on Ezra's car payment, then Nolan's mortgage, and finally, Brenda's allowance. One by one, I canceled each automatic payment. Done, I said aloud, the word hanging in the air like a final pronouncement. A strange sense of liberation washed over me, a lightness I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't about the money. It was about the principle. It was about reclaiming my worth, about finally putting myself first. I closed the laptop and stood up, stretching my stiff muscles. The sun had broken through the clouds, casting a warm glow across the room. I walked over to the window and looked out at the snow-covered garden. A robin perched on a branch, its red breast a vibrant splash of color against the white backdrop. It's a new day, I murmured, a small smile playing on my lips. For the first time in a long time, I felt a flicker of hope, a sense of anticipation for what lay ahead. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. I wasn't going to be anyone's doormat anymore. I wasn't going to let them treat me like I was invisible. They would learn, in their own time, the true cost of their ingratitude. I picked up my phone and dialed the number of the Grand Regency Hotel, the luxurious establishment I'd always dreamed of staying in. "I'd like to book a suite, please," I said, my voice steady and clear. "The presidential suite, if it's available." The receptionist confirmed the availability, and I booked it for a week starting tomorrow. "Perfect," I replied, a sense of delicious irony creeping into my voice. I imagined myself lounging by the rooftop pool, sipping champagne, far away from the drama and disrespect of my own family. The thought brought a genuine smile to my face. "They think they know me," I whispered, hanging up the phone. "They have no idea." The image of Brenda's shocked face when her credit card was declined flashed through my mind. I could almost hear Ezra's frantic calls, Nolan's stammering excuses. The thought wasn't entirely unpleasant. They'd grown accustomed to a certain lifestyle, a lifestyle I'd funded without a word of thanks. Now, they would have to face the consequences of their actions, the reality of their own financial instability. It wouldn't be easy for them, but it was a lesson they needed to learn, and I, for one, was going to enjoy watching them learn it. A week of peace and quiet, of luxury and pampering, awaited me, and as I packed a small suitcase, carefully selecting my finest clothes and jewelry, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. This wasn't revenge. Not really. It was simply reclaiming what was rightfully mine: my time, my money, and most importantly, my self-respect. The silence in the house was no longer oppressive. It was a promise of the tranquility to come. The morning after Christmas felt colder than the snow dusting my windowsill. Brenda's parting words, "You're just jealous of our success," still echoed in my ears. I sipped my lukewarm tea, the silence of my empty house a stark contrast to the forced cheer of the previous night. But something had shifted within me. The hurt remained, a dull ache in my chest, but it was overlaid with a steely resolve. I reached for my phone. "Martin," I said when he answered, "I need a favor." A discreet one. Martin was an old client from my days as a financial consultant. Sharp, thorough, and importantly, understood the unspoken rules of discretion. "Anything for you, Elmira," he replied, his voice warm and reassuring. "What can I do?" I explained my situation, leaving out the emotional turmoil, but focusing on the facts. Brenda's mother, Celestina Parrish, had boasted incessantly about her thriving import-export business, her designer clothes, and her seemingly endless stream of wealth. Something about it had always felt off, too perfect, too polished. "I need you to look into Celestina's finances," I told Martin, my voice low. "Her business, her assets, everything. I need to know the reality beneath the facade." He didn't pry, which I appreciated. "Consider it done, Elmira," he said. "I'll get back to you as soon as I have something concrete." We hung up, and I felt a knot of tension begin to loosen in my shoulders. I spent the rest of the morning going through my files, the quiet rhythm a balm to my frayed nerves. I found the documents outlining the financial support I had provided to my children over the years, Ezra's down payment on his house, Nolan's new car, Brenda's lavish wedding, a spectacle orchestrated largely by Celestina, the costs of which had somehow mysteriously ballooned beyond the agreed-upon budget. I looked at the numbers, the sheer amount I had quietly poured into their lives, and a wave of weariness washed over me. They had taken it all for granted, assuming it was their due, never once acknowledging the sacrifices I had made. The afternoon brought a call from Martin. "Elmira," he began, his tone grave. "You were right to be suspicious. Celestina Parrish's business is a house of cards, deep in debt, barely solvent. Those designer clothes, mostly knock-offs, the lavish lifestyle, financed by, well, let's just say she's been creatively leveraging other people's money." He paused. "I can get you the full report, but the short version is, she's on the brink of financial ruin." My heart pounded. It wasn't joy, not exactly. It was more a sense of vindication, a quiet satisfaction that the truth was finally coming to light. "Thank you, Martin," I said, my voice steady. "Send me everything you have." I ended the call and stared out the window, a plan slowly forming in my mind. It wasn't about revenge, not in the traditional sense. It was about reclaiming my life, my resources, my peace of mind. It was about letting the consequences of their actions fall where they may. The next few days were a blur of phone calls and emails. I contacted my financial advisor, instructing him to redirect the automatic payments I had set up for my children. I explained that I was restructuring my finances, a perfectly plausible explanation that wouldn't arouse suspicion. He agreed, his tone professional and impersonal. He didn't question my decision, and I didn't offer any further explanation. Then I made a reservation, not just any reservation, a suite at the Grand Ocean View Hotel, the most luxurious hotel in town, the one Brenda had gushed about for months, lamenting that she and Julian couldn't afford it for their honeymoon. I booked it for the entire week between Christmas and New Year's, a period I knew my children had planned to spend flitting between lavish parties and expensive dinners, all funded, of course, by the money I had been providing. I imagined their faces when they realized the tap had been turned off. I imagined Brenda's confusion, her frustration, her frantic calls to me that would go unanswered. I packed a small suitcase filled with clothes I had bought for myself, but never worn, feeling a flicker of anticipation. This wasn't about rubbing their noses in it. It was about reclaiming my own joy, about rediscovering the simple pleasure of spending my own money on myself. As I closed the suitcase, I caught my reflection in the mirror. A small smile played on my lips. It wasn't a smile of triumph, not yet. It was the smile of a woman who was finally taking control of her own narrative. The ocean view, I thought, would be spectacular. The silence in my own house was deafening. Earlier that day, my son Ezra had actually told me to leave Christmas dinner. "Just go, Mom," he'd said, his face tight with impatience. Brenda, his wife, had chimed in with a saccharine, "Really, Mother Elmira, it's best for everyone." The hurt was a raw, pulsing ache in my chest, but beneath it, something colder was hardening. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I'd been given by a friend who'd overheard Celestina Parrish, Brenda's mother, boasting about her recent investments. "Hello," a cautious voice answered. It was the private investigator I'd hired, Mrs. Persh's financial records, I prompted, trying to keep my voice even. He cleared his throat. Complicated, ma'am. She's been creative. Let's just say those luxury trips and designer handbags aren't backed by the kind of assets she claims. My heart pounded. What do you mean? I asked, clutching the phone tighter. She's leveraged up to her eyeballs, mortgaged everything, renting that fancy car, even those diamond earrings, costume jewelry. He paused. The house is about to be foreclosed on. She's been borrowing from Peter to pay Paul, hoping for a windfall that never came. I could barely breathe. Brenda and Julian were planning their extravagant wedding based on Celestina's supposed wealth. Brenda so smug about her mother's generosity. Julian seemed utterly smitten by the display, showering Brenda with even more affection whenever Celestina flashed her wealth. Send me the documentation, I managed, my voice a low hum. Right away, Mum, he replied, and the line went dead. I sat there, the weight of the revelation pressing down on me. Brenda had always been obsessed with appearances, constantly comparing herself to others, especially her friends with wealthier families. She latched onto Julian partly because of his successful career, but even more so because she believed Celestina's wealth would elevate her social standing. Now this changed everything. I spent the next hour poring over the documents the investigator sent. It was worse than I'd imagined. Celestina had built a house of cards, and it was about to collapse. I thought of Brenda, so consumed by the illusion of wealth, and a strange sense of net satisfaction, not exactly, but something akin to it, began to grow within me. This wasn't about revenge, not really. It was about consequences. They'd dismissed me, cast me aside, thinking they didn't need me anymore. They'd been so blinded by their own perceived superiority. They hadn't even noticed that the very foundation of their future was built on sand. I'd been quietly funding so much of their lifestyle, their cars, Brenda's designer clothes, even contributions towards their upcoming wedding. They thought it was Celestina's generosity, not mine. A wry smile touched my lips. I reached for my laptop and opened my online banking portal. With a few clicks, I stopped the automatic transfers to Brenda and Ezra's accounts. I stopped the payments for Nolan's car loan, the one he bragged about to everyone, attributing his success to his own hard work. I even halted the sizable monthly allowance I'd been giving them, disguised as gifts from Celestina. I knew what would happen. The dominoes would fall, one by one. First the missed car payment, then the overdue rent, then the credit card declines, and finally, the crushing realization that the fairy tale they'd built their lives on was nothing but a lie. I closed the laptop, a sense of quiet resolve settling over me. It wasn't the Christmas I'd imagined, but a different kind of gift was unfolding, a gift of truth, a gift of consequences. I looked out the window at the falling snow, the silence in the house no longer deafening, but filled with a strange kind of peace. I had a feeling this was just the beginning of a new chapter, one where I finally took control of my own narrative. And as for Brenda and Julian's grand wedding, I had a feeling it was going to be a lot less grand than they'd anticipated. A much smaller affair, perhaps, or maybe no affair at all. The Evermere Hotel, downtown. felt a world away from the chill that had settled over my heart earlier that day. Just leave, Mother, Ezra had snapped, his voice tight with impatience. Brenda, ever the picture of icy composure, had added, "You're making a scene." The sting of their words lingered, but here, amidst the hushed elegance of the lobby, I felt a quiet sense of resolve begin to bloom. "Good afternoon, madam." The concierge greeted me, his smile warm and genuine. "Welcome to the Evermere. Do you have a reservation?" "Yes, under Elmira Parish," I replied, my voice steadier than I expected. He confirmed my booking, a premium suite with a city view, the kind I'd always dreamed of experiencing. As he handed me the key card, a small, satisfied smile touched my lips. This was just the beginning. "Would you like assistance with your luggage, madam?" he inquired. "No, thank you. I'm traveling light," I said, the small overnight bag I'd packed feeling almost symbolic. Light, indeed. Free from the weight of their expectations, their demands, their casual cruelty. The bellhop led me to the elevator, the quiet hum a soothing counterpoint to the chaotic emotions still swirling within me. Stepping into the suite, I was immediately struck by the sheer opulence of it all. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased a breathtaking panorama of the city lights twinkling below. A plush king-sized bed beckoned, draped in luxurious linens. "May I bring you anything, madam?" "A complimentary bottle of champagne, perhaps?" the bellhop asked, his tone respectful. I shook my head, a genuine smile finally gracing my face. "No, thank you. This is perfect." He nodded and quietly closed the door behind him. Leaving me alone in my newfound sanctuary, I crossed the room and ran a hand over the smooth, cool surface of the marble-top desk. There was a small, elegant vase filled with fresh lilies, their fragrance filling the air. It was a far cry from the tense, suffocating atmosphere I'd escaped just hours before. I opened my bag and retrieved my phone, my fingers hovering over the screen. I had a few calls to make. First, I dialed the number of my financial advisor. "Hello, David. It's Elmira Parish. I need to make some changes to my automatic payments." I explained my decision to redirect the funds previously allocated to Ezra, Nolan, and Brenda. I listened patiently as David outlined the necessary procedures, a quiet sense of purpose hardening my resolve with every word. "Thank you, David. Please expedite these changes as quickly as possible." Next, I called the manager of the luxury car dealership where Brenda had recently leased her new sports car. "Hello, this is Elmira Parish. I'm calling regarding the lease agreement for Brenda Miller. I'm the guarantor on that account, and I'm withdrawing my guarantee, effective immediately." I could practically hear the manager's sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. "Yes, I understand the implications. Please proceed as necessary." Finally, I dialed the number for the mortgage company that held the loan on Nolan's house. "Hello, this is Elmira Parish. I'm calling to inform you that I will no longer be making the monthly payments on account number." I recited the number from memory, the satisfaction growing with each digit. "Yes, I understand that this will likely result in foreclosure proceedings. Thank you for your time." With each call, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. For years, I had silently shouldered the burden of their financial well-being. believing it was my duty as their mother. But their callous disregard for my feelings, their entitled behavior, had finally opened my eyes. I walked over to the window and gazed out at the city lights, the vibrant tapestry of life unfolding below. It was a beautiful sight, a reminder of all the possibilities that lay ahead. This wasn't about revenge, not really. It was about reclaiming my life, my independence, my self-worth. I poured myself a glass of water from the crystal carafe on the bedside table and took a slow, deliberate sip. The cool liquid was refreshing, a welcome contrast to the bitterness I had been carrying inside. I picked up the hotel directory and began flipping through the pages, my eyes scanning the list of amenities. Spa treatments, gourmet dining, a rooftop pool. The possibilities seemed endless. For the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of genuine excitement. I had spent so many years catering to their whims, putting their needs before my own. Now, it was my turn. I thought of Brenda, preening in her designer clothes, boasting about her lavish lifestyle. I thought of Ezra, always demanding the latest gadgets, expecting everything to be handed to him on a silver platter. I thought of Nolan, living in his expensive house, oblivious to the sacrifices I had made to help him secure it. A small, knowing smile played on my lips. Their world of unearned privilege was about to come crashing down, and I, for one, was going to enjoy watching it happen from the comfort of my luxurious suite, high above the fray. I picked up the phone again, this time to order room service. Yes, hello. I'd like to order the lobster bisque and the filet mignon, medium rare, and a bottle of your finest champagne, please. As I placed the order, I couldn't help but think of the Christmas dinner that had sparked this whole chain of events. Their snide remarks, their dismissive attitudes, it all seemed so distant now, like a bad dream. Tonight, I would dine like a queen, surrounded by luxury and comfort. And tomorrow, well, tomorrow was another day. I had a feeling it was going to be quite interesting. The plush hotel robe felt softer than any Christmas sweater I'd ever owned. I sipped my chamomile tea, the city lights twinkling below like a scattered handful of diamonds. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Mom, what's going on with the mortgage payment?" It was Ezra. I allowed myself a small smile. "Everything's fine, dear," I typed back. "Just reorganizing my finances." Another buzz. This time it was Nolan. "Mom, my car payment bounced. Did you forget to transfer the money?" "Heavens no," I replied. "I've simply decided to prioritize my own financial well-being." My phone continued to vibrate with increasing urgency. Brenda called, her voice shrill. "Mom, Julian's business loan payment is overdue. What have you done?" I muted the phone, enjoying the silence of the luxurious suite. A gentle knock on the door announced room service. I'd ordered the chef's special tasting menu, something I'd always denied myself before. As I savored the first course, the delicate lobster bisque, my phone began its frantic buzzing again. I finally answered Brenda's call. "Mom, this is ridiculous. We need that money, Brenda, dear," I said calmly. "I seem to recall you telling me I was useless, a drain on your resources. Perhaps you should have considered the source of those resources before dismissing me so readily," she sputtered, then yelled into the phone. Mom, we just said those things in the heat of the moment. It was stupid and wrong. We're so sorry. Please, we need that money. Apologies are empty without changed behavior. Brenda, I said, ending the call. Another text from Ezra. Mom, the bank is threatening to foreclose on the house. We need to talk. The house? The one I'd paid the down payment on. The one I'd continued to support with monthly contributions they all assumed were just expected. Talk to your sister. I texted back. She seems to think I'm a drain on your resources. I took another bite of the lobster bisque, the rich flavor of bomb tears of overlooked generosity. My phone remained silent for a blessed hour. I finished my meal, each course more exquisite than the last. Then another buzz. Nolan this time. Mom, please. I can't make my rent. They're going to evict me. I poured myself another cup of chamomile tea, the fragrant steam rising to meet my satisfied smile. Perhaps you should find a more affordable apartment. Dear, I texted back. Or perhaps, I added with a touch of steel in my fingers, Brenda and Julian can take you in. After all, they have that spacious house courtesy of me. A final call, this time from Ezra. His voice was shaking. Mom, please, I'm begging you. We'll do anything. Just tell us what you want. What I want, I repeated, a slow smile spreading across my face. I want you to understand the value of $1. I want you to appreciate the sacrifices I made for you. And I want you to remember this Christmas. I hung up the phone, the city lights glittering outside my window. I walked over to the plush king-size bed, sinking into the soft pillows. The crisp, clean sheets smelled of luxury and freedom. This, I thought, this is how Christmas should feel. Suddenly, a new text message popped up. It wasn't from any of my children. It was from Brenda's mother, Celestina Parrish, Elmira. It read, "We need to talk." I felt a surge of something cold and sharp. This wasn't over yet. Not by a long shot. This Christmas, I was getting more than just a hotel stay. I was reclaiming my life, one carefully placed phone call at a time. I typed back a single word. Indeed. The Evermere Hotel, downtown. Later that day, felt a world away from the tense Christmas dinner table. I sank into the plush armchair by the panoramic window, the city lights twinkling like a scattered handful of diamonds. A soft knock came at the door. "Room service, Mum," a cheerful voice announced. I opened it to a waiter wheeling in a trolley laden with delicacies. A steaming lobster bisque, a perfectly seared filet mignon, and a decadent chocolate tort. "Everything looks wonderful," I murmured, a genuine smile finally gracing my lips. He set up the small table by the window, the crisp white linen and gleaming silverware a stark contrast to the paper plates and plastic cutlery Brenda had insisted on using at Christmas dinner. "Just ring if you need anything else, ma'am," the waiter said with a courteous bow before leaving. I poured myself a glass of chilled champagne, the bubbles tickling my nose, a welcome sensation after the tight knot of anxiety I'd carried for days. It was strange, this quiet solitude. For so long, my life had revolved around my sons, Ezra and Nolan, and their families. I'd dedicated myself to their well-being, sacrificing my own comfort and desires to ensure they had the best of everything. The house they shared, Brenda's flashy car, Even Julian's designer suits, all of it came from my careful investments and unwavering financial support. Yet, when I'd voiced my concerns about the rising costs of their lifestyle during Christmas dinner, Ezra had simply scoffed. "Mom, you worry too much," he'd said dismissively. "We're doing just fine." Brenda, never one to miss an opportunity to flaunt her supposed wealth, had chimed in. "Actually, Mom, things are better than fine. Julian's bonus this year was she'd named an exorbitant sum, her eyes glittering with smug satisfaction. I'd known then, with a sickening certainty, that they had no idea. They had no idea how much of their success was built on my silent contributions, on years of careful planning and quiet generosity. They'd taken it all for granted, assuming it would simply continue to flow like an endless stream. The memory of Brenda's condescending tone, the way she'd dismissed my concerns about their spending habits, still stung. "Honestly, Mom," she'd said, waving a dismissive hand, "you really shouldn't worry your pretty little head about these things." That's when Ezra, spurred on by Brenda and Julian's snickers, had told me to leave. But now, here in the opulent quiet of the Evermere's presidential suite, I felt a sense of calm I hadn't realized I'd been missing. The city lights spread out before me, a glittering tapestry woven with the threads of my own hard work. I took a bite of the lobster bisque, savoring the rich, creamy flavor. It was a far cry from the lukewarm casserole Brenda had served at Christmas dinner, a dish she'd claimed was gourmet, but had tasted suspiciously like something from a can. I'd made my decision that night, as I'd driven away from their house, tears blurring my vision. I wouldn't confront them directly. No, that would only give them the chance to plead ignorance, to feign remorse. I would show them, not tell them. I'd quietly withdraw my financial support, the lifeline that had kept their extravagant lifestyle afloat. The house was in my name, the car payments routed through my account. Even Julian's supposed bonus had been a carefully crafted illusion, a sum I'd deposited into his account to appease Brenda's insatiable desire for appearances. I picked up my phone and glanced at the messages. One from Ezra. "Mom, the mortgage payment bounced. What's going on?" Another from Nolan. "Mom, the car dealership called. They said my payments are overdue." And then the piece de resistance, a frantic message from Brenda. "Mom, Julian's company said there's been a mistake with his bonus. They never deposited it. What's happening?" I put my phone down, a small smile playing on my lips. Let them scramble. Let them experience the consequences of their own careless disregard. I finished my dinner, savoring every bite, every sip of champagne. The chocolate torte was exquisite, a symphony of rich, dark chocolate and smooth, velvety cream. It was the kind of indulgence I rarely allowed myself, always prioritizing my children's needs over my own. But tonight I deserved it. I looked out at the city lights, a sense of quiet satisfaction settling over me. This wasn't about revenge, not really. It was about reclaiming my life, about finally putting myself first. It was about reminding myself that I, too, deserved a little luxury, a little peace, a little bit of joy. And the irony wasn't lost on me. While they scrambled to understand the sudden evaporation of their financial security, I was enjoying the fruits of my own labor, the rewards of a lifetime of hard work and careful planning. I had booked this hotel room, the most expensive suite in Evermere for a full month. A whole month of uninterrupted peace, of luxurious comfort, of simple living. The thought brought a genuine smile to my face. This Christmas, my gift to myself was priceless. 2 days later, the sting of Brenda's words, "Just leave, Mother, you're ruining everything," still echoed in my ears. I sipped my mimosa, the bubbles tickling my nose, a pleasant contrast to the lump that had taken residence in my throat since Christmas Eve. The sun streamed through the panoramic windows of my suite, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. It was a beautiful day, a beautiful room, a beautiful life. I pulled out my phone, idly scrolling through Instagram. That's when I saw it. Brenda had posted a picture. It was her beaming, arm in arm with her mother, Celestina Parrish, at some sort of lavish party. Celestina was dripping in what I assumed were diamonds. A smug smile plastered across her face. The caption read, "Another fabulous evening with my darling Brenda. So proud of all she's accomplished. Blessed family success." I felt a flicker of amusement. Brenda, always so eager to project an image of success, of effortless affluence. It was a carefully constructed facade, one I had unknowingly helped maintain for years. I set my mimosa down, the gentle clink of crystal against glass a small, private sound in the spacious suite. I picked up the hotel phone. "Room service, please," I said, my voice calm and clear. "I'd like the Belgian waffles with extra berries and a pot of Earl Grey tea." As I hung up, I glanced back at Brenda's post. The comments were filled with gushing praise and envious remarks. "Living the dream," one user wrote. "Goals," another chimed in. I knew the truth, though. I knew the precarious house of cards they had built, the shaky foundation of borrowed money and unpaid bills. I knew the quiet desperation behind the forced smiles and carefully curated Instagram posts, and I knew with a deep, abiding satisfaction that the truth would out. I took another sip of my mimosa, the bubbles now a celebratory fizz. The sun felt warm on my skin. The view from my window, overlooking the sparkling turquoise waters of the Caribbean, was breathtaking. This was my Christmas gift to myself, a gift of peace, of quiet vindication, of freedom. The freedom that comes from finally letting go of the burden of other people's expectations and choosing to prioritize your own happiness. The gentle knock of room service arrived, a welcome interruption. As the waiter wheeled in the laden cart, I couldn't help but smile. The waffles smelled divine, the berries plump and juicy. This, I thought, is what it feels like to truly be blessed. This is what it feels like to finally be free. I poured myself a cup of tea, the fragrant steam rising to meet my face. I took a deep breath, savoring the moment. The phone buzzed again. It was Brenda. I let it go to voicemail. I knew what she wanted. She wanted another bailout, another silent injection of funds to prop up her crumbling fantasy. She wouldn't get it, not this time. This Christmas, I was giving myself the gift of silence, the gift of distance, the gift of watching the consequences unfold from a safe, comfortable distance. The gentle clinking of silverware against china filled the room as I began to eat. The taste of the warm, sweet waffles was exquisite. The sun continued to stream through the window, painting the room in a golden glow. I closed my eyes for a moment, savoring the peace. This was my Christmas, and it was perfect.